Okay, well, good morning, everybody. It's my pleasure to be able to open the session today, and it was a lot of fun to go back to all my files from Geoscience BC back in 2005 and remember some of the things that we were doing back then. So today I'm going to talk some amount about 2005, just as a sort of bit of historical context to Geoscience BC. And then jump forward a little bit to 2015 and look a little bit at what's happened over the past 10 years. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Rob Stevens. I'm the Associate Dean of Natural Resources and Engineering at BCIT. So I manage a whole range of programs. I used to have a little catchphrase which was find it, map it, extract it, restore it. But this fall I just took over civil engineering, so now I've got find it, map it, design it, extract it, restore it. Because I have programs such as on the find it, mineral exploration and forestry, map it, GIS, mineral exploration of course, geomatics, which is surveying, design it, civil engineering. I also, BCIT just launched this September a new mining and mineral resource engineering program. So that's on the design side too. Extract it, mining and forestry, and then restore it. I have a group of programs in the environmental area, including fish, wildlife, and recreation, ecological restoration, and really pleased that also this fall we just launched a new master's degree in ecological restoration in partnership with Simon Fraser University, so we're really excited about that. So anyway, there's a little bit of what I do during my day job. Also, as I put up here, back in 2005, on a sabbatical leave from BCIT, when I was a faculty member, I was the interim executive director of Geoscience BC and helped to sort of get it up and running. And the template that you'll see here, it does have the current logo on it, but this is the template. I just redid one from 2005. So this is the slideshow we were using at that point. So February 22nd, 2005, this news release came out from the provincial government announcing that the BC government was supporting, as it said, mining, so it was kind of focusing on the mineral side, with a grant of $25 million to the BC and Yukon Chamber of Mines. So this grew out of many years of effort by the BC and Yukon Chamber of Mines. Now you would know that as AIM-BC, or the Association for Mineral Exploration BC. They had been talking a lot about geoscience and the need for geoscience, and that BC was starting to fall behind a little bit. There were low levels of grassroots exploration and a decrease in investment in geoscience. And so there was a real need to increase that. The Liberal government at the time certainly had been listening. Geoscience BC grew out of what was an initial program called Rocks to Riches, which was in 2004, maybe even 2003. It was a little fuzzy on the exact dates. But that was a little over $1 million that the government had provided to the BC and Yukon Chamber of Mines to fund geoscience work to support exploration. And I think they felt confident with how the Chamber had managed that program, which led to then this much bigger grant that came out in 2005. So why Geoscience BC? I think there was a couple of key things around that. A real industry focus was certainly what the government was looking for, as well as opportunities to leverage funding from the government as much as possible. And there was a feeling that doing that in this independent organization was one of the best ways to do that. So I just note with this press release also that it doesn't say Geoscience BC because the name hadn't yet been coined. So it was pretty early days at that point. So here we are now in April 2005, a little bit of a boring image, but there it is, the interim business plan in April 2005, which I think much of what's in there still guides Geoscience BC today. I'd like to give a lot of credit to Dan Jepson, who was the executive director of the Chamber at the time, Dave Caulfield, who was the president, and also John Thompson, who's had a long involvement with Geoscience BC, as some of the key drivers in writing this plan. Now, I know there were others who were involved too. I personally wasn't, but I know those three were key drivers in that. So what were some of the main aspects of that plan? So an independent board of directors, which still exists today, a technical advisory committee that would support the decisions on where that funding would go, and some aspects of the mandate. The first one, to collect data. As Robin mentioned, and that still remains, the core of the organization. To use partnerships and alliances to leverage that funding. And there was a hope in the plan that it would be between 25 and 50% leveraged funding. To make all the data public, to have it publicly available and easily accessible. And also in 2005, we were kind of in the middle of the pine beetle epidemic. And so there was a real interest to have some of this work focused on the pine beetle area to try and diversify the economic activities in those regions. So here was that board, just coming back to the board. John Thompson was the chair of the board, and I know he was essentially for 10 years and just recently has stepped down. So John's played a really strong role in guiding Geoscience BC. Michael McPhee was the president of the Mining Association of BC at the time, was on the board. Walter Segsworth, past president of Homestake and Westman. Jim Gray, an accountant, and then myself. And also, as I mentioned, I was the executive director at that time. The Technical Advisory Committee, I really feel that this is one of the biggest strengths of Geoscience BC, is the Technical Advisory Committee. And out of the gate, it really focused on reviewing proposals that we received. We did a call for proposals, and the Technical Advisory Committee would play that role of reviewing those proposals that were received. Partway through the first year, I would say that shifted a little bit to start playing more of an advisory role to the board about the directions that we should go in, rather than just looking at what proposals we might receive. Where might we like to receive proposals for? What region, what topics? And I know that continues to play a really important role. So those are the two bullets there of kind of recommending proposals that are received and then to provide that advice. In looking back here at this clip of the Technical Advisory Committee members from 2005, definitely had a minerals focus, but I'm impressed at the continuity. And so the individuals here that are highlighted in yellow are all people that are still on the Technical Advisory Committee. And so that's 10 people who were there at the beginning, who are still on it. And I think that's shows a lot of strength for Geoscience BC and allows that history to be understood. So we're not repeating things maybe that have already been tried or that sort of thing. So here was the first call for proposals. There was a real desire to get going quickly with some activities to not miss that summer of 2005. So this call went out. You can see there's no logo yet at the top. And we got an excellent response. 46 proposals were received requesting more than $19 million in funding. So, we would have been just about done right away if they had all been successful. Of course, they all weren't. There was some strong proposals, though, and in the end, 11 were funded, totaling about $1.25 million. So just as a little bit of a side, Geoscience BC sort of had no framework, I guess, and myself and others were involved in getting that going. So we had these proposals that were approved. Well, now we needed to set up contracts. So we went through developing a template for contracts, using some best examples and getting quick review from lawyers. And so we got it set up and sent it out. And everything was great until we started working with the federal government. There was a couple of people from the Geological Survey of Canada who had been successful. And so I started having back and forth with lawyers in Ottawa. That would be big gaps between edits to the proposal. And or to this contract, and it really was they wanted us to use the federal government contract, not ours. After a while, I realized that if we were going to have this thing move forward, we'd probably have to wait for the Queen to approve changes to the contract. So we decided to use the federal government contract for theirs, otherwise we were going to miss the whole field season. So anyway, that was kind of a fun side one. So here is the Technical Advisory Committee reviewing that first set of proposals in April 2005. I remember it being really quite a day. I hadn't actually yet started as the executive director. I was trying to wrap up the term at BCIT. I remember it being for myself, and I'm sort of way at the back there on the right side. It was pretty stressful. We had 46 proposals. We had this large TAC that hadn't met before. We needed to corral a fair, transparent, and objective review of all of these proposals. And we did. And I remember afterwards, the late Bob Cathro, who's just up there on the left, came up to me in a fairly understated way and said, well, I think that went pretty well. And I remember going, oh, okay, good. We're off to the races then, because having that sort of boost of confidence, I guess, from him was I remember, very helpful. So after the first 8 months, the end of 2005, where did we land? 19 projects had been funded through 3 calls for proposals, including one that was a matching grant one. About $6 million in funding, 3.4 of which was Geoscience B, so 43% was the matching. So that was excellent, at the upper part of that 25 to 50% range that we were looking for. And here's the projects. It was quite a range, I think. We had geochemistry and geophysics projects, mapping, mineral deposits. There was a data archives compilation, a community one. So I think that was a good start at fulfilling that mandate of Geoscience BC. Dissemination of results. So that was, if you remember, one of the key parts of the mandate was to get that data out there publicly. So this is where it started. There's a screenshot of the website as it was back in 2005. Looks a little more fancy now, I guess. And initially we used the Geological Survey of BC, or the BCGS Geological Fieldwork Report to publish the data. So you can see this one also says Geoscience BC Report 2006-1. Another thing, if you look on the website there, the little map of BC says, click on this to see our interactive project map. And that was really this. If you clicked on those things, up would come project data. And we'd kind of modeled that a bit after MapPlace. And I noticed that's still a trend that is continuing with Geoscience BC, is to have a map browser basically to be able to easily access all that data. Of course, it didn't take very long before this got really cumbersome. 19 projects was okay, but once you get above that, this was not an ideal way to be able to select project data. Here's a little side trip. I remember this being fun, trying to come up with the logo for Geoscience BC. And so Sharon Gramchuk from XY3 Design, who I see still does work for Geoscience BC, was contracted to come up with some logos. And so here were some of the ones that we were looking at settling on. You could see some of them had this real target idea was something that was a focus. The mountains kind of showed up in a lot of them, a blue and green color. And there was a lot of debate that went on. There was never a full consensus, that's for sure, of where we should go, but actually all of these look pretty good. So it was a bit of a difficult decision. Even when we decided to go with this one, then there was all the colors and the fonts and starting to get down to the trivia maybe about what makes a good logo. And of course, this is where we ended up. I like to put this one, I wanted to put this up as a full screen here just because if you haven't seen it yet, do you see the rabbits in the logo? There's a couple of rabbits there on both sides. Now, my wife says I see animals in a lot of things, so maybe I'm just making it up. But for some reason, I can never get the rabbits out of my mind when I see this. But still a good logo anyway. So Geoscience BC today. I just clipped this off of the website as it is today. So Geoscience BC, a nonprofit organization established in 2005 through an investment from the province of British Columbia. We generate earth sciences information in partnership with First Nations, the resource sector, universities, governments, and communities. And this is the key sentence I wanted to focus on here. We deliver this information to the public to encourage investment and enable informed land use decisions for the benefit of all British Columbians. So I see that as a slight shift from that early focus of Geoscience BC, which was very much around collecting data to support exploration in minerals and oil and gas. I think there had always been a sense of the policy side of things, the support of land use decisions, but that certainly wasn't part of the first phase. And I think that's been a really valuable shift in the direction of Geoscience BC, is to help inform policy decisions and to engage and work with communities around what geoscience is and how it's used within our resource sector. Of course, there's still an independent board, very strong board. A number of people have been on it over the years, and I think that's been a very strong aspect of Geoscience BC. Technical advisory committees, as I said, we started on the mineral side, but the mandate was always beyond just minerals, so there was an oil and gas TAC that was struck in 2007, and now there's also a geothermal one that I understand came in about 2 or 3 years ago. So expanding the sort of reach, I guess, of Geoscience BC. So just a few comments from my perspective. I stayed on as the chair of the TAC, I think, till some point in 2007. And I haven't really been too involved with Geoscience BC since then. So it was, again, fun for me to go back and look at a lot of the things that have happened. And what you see at the top, this is just a clip from the top of the website, because I think it kind of highlights some of the focuses of Geoscience BC. You know, the RFP that you can see in the middle there. So request for proposals. That's still, as I understand, annually there is a request for proposals. So to generate ideas that can come from you know, the broad scientific and exploration communities. Projects. I think a real shift that's happened from the early days are these large integrated projects. And I think they've been a big success for Geoscience BC. Of course, more oil and gas projects, certainly, because there was very little at the beginning. Outreach. Oh, sorry, just if I come back to the top of the screen there, you see data and publications. Again, real focus to get that data out there and make it as accessible as possible. Outreach, I think, is also a direction that was, you know, always part of the essence of Geoscience BC, but we didn't do very much of that initially. The scholarships for graduate students, community engagement that Robin talked about, workshops, conferences, seminars, I think that's all been an excellent evolution in the organization. And new directions. The geothermal, I think, is one of them. Looking at aquifers, induced seismology relative to fracking. So a number of new things that, in a way, I think the organization is moving with the times and addressing more current issues. So the major projects I mentioned, I think these have been an excellent direction for the organization. 132 projects now in total, not just the major ones, have been completed. Data has been collected across more than 50% of the province, so that's pretty impressive in 10 years. 49 million spent to date on projects, which has leveraged an additional 22 million, so that's at about 45%. Pretty close to where we started, and again, still on the high end of that range that was the target from that original business plan. So I think that's been an excellent success. And then these major integrated projects, as I mentioned. Here's one that I was involved with just from the beginning. I think the first major project that started in 2007. What I always liked about this image is, what was the aim of this project? Was really to stimulate exploration in drift-covered areas of the highly prospective Quinella terrain. And if you look at that image and the black box on there, the little black dots are mineral showings. And you can see with Prince George right in the middle, there's a big gap there in the Quinella terrain. And so that was kind of the thesis, I suppose, around this one in terms of starting an integrated project. And, you know, as you can see on this image here, there's been many since. Dissemination of data, that's continued as an important direction. Geoscience BC, after the first 2 years, developed its own summary of activities, which is a solid report putting out the details of the data that's collected. The website is looking a little more sophisticated, and if you see sort of in the bottom right, it says the Earth Science Viewer. Again, that's getting back to that theme of making sure that that data is readily available and on a map browser, kind of like MapPlace. So that theme's kind of continued as well. Outreach, I mentioned a new direction for the organization, certainly since 2005. I don't want to say it's new right now. 73 scholarships of $5,000 have been awarded to graduate students working on thesis topics related to exploration and development in BC. So I think that's a very successful engagement with First Nations and communities, so they understand geoscience and the resource sector and what all this data collection means. Workshops, short courses, etc. And one of the things I would say with the outreach is I give a lot of credit to Lynn Anglin, the previous president and CEO, because that was something that she really moved forward and I think was very successful on. So I got the red card here. I'm almost done. New initiatives. So I see Geoscience BC is really expanding its reach now. Deep aquifer fluid disposal and induced seismology related to the oil and gas side and fracking. Groundwater resources in the Peace region. That's another earth resource that it's important for us to know about. I just highlight the partners there because that's always been a focus of Geoscience BC is partners. And the geothermal resources of British Columbia. Of course, that is another important resource. And I think that has been will be interesting to see how that evolves over the next few years. So I think just in wrap up here, there's been a lot of amazing accomplishments over the past 10 years. Many of you are directly responsible for it. It's the data that you've collected and the studies that you've done that have got us there. I think you could say that the exploration percentage in Canada has gone from 6% to about 20% in that time frame. At least some of that we can attribute to Geoscience BC. I know the data has helped to extend the mine life of Huckleberry. It's trained the next generation or helped to train the next generation of geoscientists, and now addressing new and frontier areas in the earth resource sector. So anyway, congratulations to everybody, and I look forward to the next 10 years. So thanks very much.